All right, Broncos country. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Davante Adams has officially been released by the New York Jets. I think we all could have seen this coming. I think they saved like close to $30 million by releasing that man. And it has been a divided topic on Broncos country Twitter, specifically on whether we should bring him in. I mean, obviously, he still was fantastic last year, and he's put up great stats, and he's had good years despite being on absolutely horrible teams. And I'm going to get into why I don't think that he's the best use of dollars, even though he's still a tremendous wide receiver. Right. But y'all let me know your thoughts in the comments. Should Davante Adams be the Broncos' top wide receiver target coming into this year's 2025 free agency? Let me know. I'll go through the free agents this year as well as expected free agents for next year as well, and how I think the Broncos probably will attack this or should attack this. But let's go ahead and get into it. So, of course, Davante Adams, still one of the premier receivers in the NFL, was on salary, I think, for $28 million this past season with the Raiders / mainly New York Jets. And yeah, I think is still going to justify what, $15 million, $20 million a year. He is 32 years old. And that is kind of the biggest thing on why I'm saying no. Now, some of you guys have not been a fan of like going after a guy like Cooper Kupp because, yeah, 30, 31, I understand that. Davante Adams is 32, but here's the thing. A guy like Cooper Kupp and how he progresses in his career is a little bit different to the archetype of a Davante Adams. Normally, these types of guys, I mean, when they hit that cliff, I mean, it hits straight on and the play is gone. The play is absolutely gone. You remember maybe Dez Bryant or Demaryius Thomas, was kind of that same type of situation. That's how I could see things happening for Devontae Smith as well, or Davante Adams, even though he has played successfully into his 30s, unlike those guys. But the other reason of why I'm saying no to Davante Adams is this dude is a dummy. This guy was at the Las Vegas Raiders. One, he requested to be traded there. Terrible decision. Then, because he wants to play with his college buddy Derek Carr, whatever. I mean, that's cool, but he values certain things over winning. That's just what I'm trying to get at. And for him to then go to the Raiders, then start complaining his way there, and then demanding a trade to the absolutely horrible train wreck memed franchise this past year, the New York Jets, is laughable. Again, this guy, even though he is tremendous, I do not like the fact that he values other things, playing with his buddies, hanging out, right, with his buddies, catching passes from Aaron Rodgers, catching passes from Derek Carr, getting upset when his buddy's not going to be his quarterback anymore over winning. The guy doesn't care about winning. And that's mainly why I'm saying no. I have loved the fact that we're building this young core, this offensive core that doesn't have toxic egos. I would put Davante Adams in that category right now because of how he has left Green Bay, how he has left the Raiders. And again, all I need to say is that this man requested a trade to the New York Jets. That's all I need to say. That, hey, something ain't right. Something ain't right. I don't want it screwing up the mojo of this team because he is somebody that is likely to get upset with a win because he didn't get enough action one week. I don't want that. So I'm all for signing like a veteran, right? And we'll get into that here in just a moment. But it needs to be the right veteran, a veteran that's not going to come in here and bring toxicity, that's going to continue to add to the culture, the championship culture we're trying to build, right? And also, he's not a championship player. What has Davante Adams ever won? What teams has he ever been on that have won anything? Maybe he will surprise me and not take the biggest payday and finally go to a contender where he can win. Maybe that's what he's just forced to do after Aaron Rodgers. I mean, who knows where he ends up. But yeah, I don't think he's a team first guy. I think he's a me first guy. And why pay all that money to a guy who's not going to be all about the team, right? We're not in the place right now where we can go out and pay divas and get away with it. We're trying to build something right now, okay? So, yeah, saying no way for Davante Adams. And here's why. I want to get into, I'll get to your comments here in just a bit, David. Thank you so much. Is why I think it would be pretty smart to sign one of these veteran receivers, particularly Chris Godwin, man, to a contract here when free agency opens. Now, he's probably going to be a little bit pricier in terms of guaranteed money and maybe average annual salary compared to somebody like Davante Adams. But again, he's 3 years younger than Davante Adams, captain on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he's somebody that can play, multiple positions. Marquee Sports has brought this up. He can play that Z receiver. He can play the slot. He can be whatever you need him to be, and it really allows you to have flexibility in the draft as well, to where you don't kind of pigeonhole yourself, so to speak. To we need a slot guy, or oh man, we really need an outside guy. No, Chris Godwin is a guy that can kind of be all things. Again, tremendous character, leader. Championship experience, Super Bowl champion. So just like I brought up Cooper Kupp yesterday, Chris Godwin is the same thing, provides championship experience, right? Winning one with Tom Brady, comes from a winning culture. Great guy. He'll add to it. And man, I would love to see him here. Now, especially if we let Courtland Sutton just play the last year here under his contract and then he hits free agency, we move on next season. I think it's going to be important that we have a veteran receiver still here, to where, because when we get to 2026, again, some of these guys might sign contract extensions. But you're looking at, potential free agents being T. Higgins. Okay, he'll be 28. DK Metcalf. We'll see Deebo Samuel on the wrong side of 30, Terry McLaurin on the wrong side of 30, Mike Evans, wrong side of 30, Christian Kirk, he'll be past 30, Courtland Sutton, obviously, will be past 30. The wide receiver market actually still doesn't look too great unless like a guy like Garrett Wilson doesn't sign an extension or Chris Olave doesn't sign an extension. The Saints might have to trade him depending on what their cap situation looks like. I mean, we'll have to see here Jameson Williams, but I imagine they all get their club options and they return. And yeah, like right now, it's not a very sexy group right now in 2026. And I think like I would probably take Chris Godwin right now, then, signing a guy like Terry McLaurin a year from now, or, Jacoby Myers, right? I would probably like to do that. So again, like I'm pretty flexible. We bring in a guy like Chris Godwin or Cooper Kupp. Again, these are guys, that we'll still shell out money for. Now, Chris Godwin will be much more expensive than a Cooper Kupp, but I think that they add value to the wide receiver room. They raise the floor. They add some veteran experience. Darius Slayton, obviously, coming from the New York Giants, that's not a championship culture, but he is much younger, 26 years old. He would be somebody that can be a definite building piece if you need him to be. But I would hate to go into 2026 without a veteran receiver that's kind of been on the team. Maybe again, Troy Franklin becomes that 1,000-yard receiver guy this year. I think that would be tremendous. But if we want to think optimistically like that, a guy like Chris Godwin would make a lot of sense because he wouldn't kind of hinder, where like Troy Franklin getting on the field. Because again, Chris Godwin can kind of play multiple positions. I think that would be pretty interesting. So it would be ideal not to go into 2026 needing like 2 starting wide receivers. Again, maybe we draft somebody like Jayden Higgins or Jack Bech or Beck. Besh or Beck? I always get it confused. Jack Bech in day 2 of or round 2 of the NFL draft. Man, Jayden Higgins, man. I really do like Jayden Higgins. I think there are other positions that are a little bit more pressing, though. And I think the Broncos should sign a wide receiver in this year's free agency class. So all that to say, no to Davante Adams. No. This guy, doesn't value winning at the top of his list. Dude's a dummy. Whenever you request a trade to the Jets, you're a dummy. You're a dummy. Yeah, David saying, hell no. DT was not a cancer. You're absolutely right about that. His game just fell off. Rest in peace. But David's also saying, I don't think Sean will have a true number one wide receiver. Maybe to the likes of somebody like what T. Higgins could be on this team. I think you're probably right. I think maybe signing a guy like Chris Godwin, I think that he would be a number one option. But, there are other wide receivers that have a lot more star power, right? But I think he would be a good fit for this team. And again, if you sign a veteran like Cooper Kupp or Chris Godwin, somebody like that, it'll be a short-term deal. And I think, again, they would add to the culture, what we're trying to build here, instead of being concerned with what their numbers are and what their next contract is going to be, right? Yeah, exactly, T-Fishes. Adams wasn't two dumpster fires, brother. If he comes to Denver, I'm pretty sure Sean and the coaching staff can keep him positive. If he is cheap, get him coming in with the fresh perspective. And I mean, when you look at Sean Payton's history, Michael Thomas, maybe a guy that I argued for last offseason we should bring in. He's kind of a diva, right? He's kind of a diva. Maybe Sean Payton, he runs a tight ship, could probably keep somebody like Davante Adams in line. And I think that's fair. Now, I will say, hey, there's a price to everything. If Davante Adams truly wants to win here, right? Hey, and he's going to be $10 million a year cheaper than Chris Godwin, maybe that's something to discuss. I just feel like he's going to be more expensive than guys like Cooper Kupp, Darius Slayton, maybe not on par with Chris Godwin, but maybe just a little bit cheaper. But that's all just me talking out of my butt. But if it was Davante Adams, I bet he's looking for a multi-year deal. Wouldn't you think he would be at 32? And I wouldn't sign him to anything past 1 year. If I had to make this work, if T. Fishes was holding the gun up to my head saying, you got to get this to work, it's got to be a 1 year deal. It's got to be a 1 year deal. And, but yeah, man, I just find him to be a dummy. And eventually, players like that do fall off. He'll be going into his age 32 season. I think he turns 33 at the end of this year. We're going to have to see. Now, Denver Trav is saying, what's up, Denver Trav? Y'all go subscribe to Denver Trav, by the way. He says Adams is going to be way cheaper. You're saying 2 year, $28 million. I don't like the 2 year. That's just me. But that wouldn't be a terrible amount of cap space. No. And maybe you could structure it to where, yeah, pretty much all those guarantees come in the first year, right? But maybe he wouldn't like that kind of deal. I'm just trying to think of like how you can make it work. But at the end of the day, give me Chris Godwin over Davante Adams. Give me Chris Godwin over Davante Adams, Denver Trav. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. But I will say, I watched one of your videos recently on Tez Johnson. And I think we can find some common ground on Tez Johnson. I'll get to that in another video. But David's saying, man, do you guys really want that type of cancer in the locker room? I just don't want dummies like that, man. That's just me. It's not really any deeper than that. When you request to go to the Raiders, when you request to go to the Jets, yes, you can say that those were, terrible situations. But to me, you put yourself there. You put yourself there. That was your own decision. Shame on you. Shame on you. All this talk for the Broncos to bring in Josh Palmer, Jawan Johnson, and Rico Dowdle. Hey, I would be thrilled with 2 of those 3 additions. Give me Rico Dowdle. Give me Juwan Johnson. Now, it seems like Denver media, like the real media, right? The guys who do the radio and have sources and all that, they've been saying, maybe Juwan Johnson isn't going to be that signing this year at tight end, which could be interesting. Maybe it's going to be somebody like Tyler Conklin. I think could be a really good signing here. Remember, Jared Cook was a good tight end for the Saints. Like, I think during like his age 33 or 34 season was insane. So Tyler Conklin's 29? And Rico Dowdle, hey, I'm not opposed to it. 1,000-yard rusher with the Cowboys this past year. And, had better metrics compared to Najee Harris with like yards after contact and all that. So I wouldn't hate it. And T Fishes, that's what I'm kind of expecting. 22 to 25 million a year for Godwin, probably. So Adams maybe would be about significantly cheaper. I don't know. I just don't want Davante Adams going to any team in the AFC, man. Go to the NFC, man. Let an NFC team deal with you. Adams wanted to play with his college buddies and the quarterback that has not come out of the darkness. Yes. What happens to Aaron Rodgers this year? Personally, though, I would love it if Aaron Rodgers went to the Raiders. I think that would be so poetic, but the Raiders probably won't welcome back Davante Adams, right? They've been saying Denver has big ties to Nick Bolton. That's what Denver radio's been saying. Yes, and man, I would love it. Nick Bolton's still only 24. This guy can be like a true franchise linebacker for us, obviously, I think he's better than Alex Singleton. But yeah, if we were to bring back Alex Singleton on like a cheap deal or something like that, again, we can release him, save like $5 million. I think Singleton's going into his age 30 season or turned 29 recently. So he's got a lot of tread left, which could be fun. We could potentially even get him for 2 contracts. Maybe that would be fun. And I don't mind the splash signing being on defense at all. Let's get a really good linebacker. Maybe we can make some Malcolm Roche type of signings on the defensive line that end up being good values. Remember, Brandon Jones was kind of he was kind of a rotational guy, kind of started in and out at Miami, if I remember correctly. And maybe we sign a guy like that to compete with PJ Locke. But overall, I feel like our defensive scouting has been really, really good. Now, the offense, they got some room to work, right? To grow. Davante Adams goes to the Chargers, man. It's going to suck. Now, Fresno, California isn't exactly LA, but hey, close enough. Maybe he considers that going home. I don't even know where he's from. Has Nick took a step back? Who are you talking about, David? Denver Trav saying, I think we're going to see Sutton and Benito get extensions coming up real soon. And yeah, if we're able to bring down that cap hit for Sutton down, or with an extension, we could bring it down significantly from that 20 million, probably get it to 10 million or 12. And that opens up $8 million for going towards a guy like Nick Bolton, right? With, say you open up $8 million and then you cut Alex Singleton, that's $13 million right there. That basically pays for Nick Bolton. Thoughts on Darius Slayton? I love Darius Slayton. To me, he's like Emmanuel Sanders, underrated, and will break out on his next team. That's how I feel about it. Probably had the worst quarterback play over the last handful of years with Daniel Jones, and still put up 700 yards plus pretty much every year. I think he's a really good receiver and about to hit his prime, right? 26, 27 years old this upcoming year. I think that would be great. Dom Marr saying, rather draft Burden than sign an older guy, to be honest. Interesting. I do think Burden I think he could surprise some people. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he turns out to be like the best receiver in this class. And that's based on like if Travis Hunter isn't playing receiver full time. Because I do think like overall he's just a better receiver than Ted McMillan. Guys, I got to be honest. I think Ted McMillan is a normal case of like the potential of what this physical archetype can become, but I think he plays a little soft for his size. Um, and a lot of his production, especially this past year, came against like G5 and FCS opponents. I don't know if he's that dog that people make him out to be. But if we drafted Luther Burden, to get back to this question, if we drafted Luther Burden, like I would be fine with it. I'd be happy guy. Again, like I'm pretty easy to please, where it's just like as long as we just address our needs somehow, I'm gonna be okay. Like I'm not gonna get super caught up on like who we passed over, unless it ends up being like a Josh Allen, Bradley Chubb type of thing. But I think Burns a really good receiver, and he definitely would be explosive. But I don't know if, to me, I just feel like running back, tight end, defensive line should probably take precedent over wide receiver with, our first round pick. But again, like I brought up a guy, Jayden Higgins, I think would be really, really good. Ultimately, I'm not going to complain going and getting a weapon for the offense when we were just so desperate for offensive playmaking. I always thought the Broncos would go defense in free agency and build the offense through the draft. I hope we try to address as much as we can in free agency. That's kind of my thing, just so we truly can go with who we feel like are the best players available within reason at our pick. I don't want to be pigeonholed anywhere. And linebacker, I mean, I would love for us to sign 2 free agent linebackers. Now, part of me has this feeling like they're going to try. I mean, we'll have good indication. I think if they don't sign us, like, if they sign Nick Bolton and then they don't really sign another linebacker of substance, maybe that gives you indication on where they feel like where Drew Sanders is at there. I would just prefer not to force him in there, right? Like EJ Speed, I talked about yesterday, inside linebacker from Indianapolis, I think could be a wonderful addition. Having him and Nick Bolton, I think would be really, really exciting. Oh, I heard Nick Bolton took a step back. He didn't have the best postseason from what I remember reading. And yeah, there were some tough plays that he had in the Super Bowl. But overall, I think he was a captain this year for the Chiefs. I believe he's like an all-pro level talent, if I remember correctly, and a guy that I feel like would just be a tremendous add. And again, it's not like he's 29 taking a step back. He's 24. I think there's still plenty of room to grow. And you could argue again that he hasn't reached his ceiling being that young. So, yeah, to me, I would love Nick Bolton here. Now, he's not, I don't know if he's the best guy in pass coverage that we could sign. Maybe a guy like Tyrell Dotson from Miami could be a guy to go after. But, Miami Dolphins fans really want him back. And he's very good against or in coverage, but he can lack against the run. And you guys know, I mean, Buffalo just destroyed us against the run. I think we can make it work. I mean, Nick Bolton, I remember him picking off Russell Wilson a couple of years ago. I mean, that is Russell Wilson, but it's not like he's a dead zero in coverage. I think he still has a pretty good coverage grade in like the 60s, if I remember, or 70s on PFF. Do you think Estime is a cut candidate? I wouldn't say that he would be a cut candidate that would be like most likely, but I don't think Jaleel McLaughlin or Audric Estime should feel comfortable at all coming into camp this year. No. it would suck to cut a 5th round pick after 1 year, but we've seen crazier things happen. I think we at minimum bring 2 new running backs into this room, possibly 3, depending on how the draft shakes out. But I think we make a free agent signing and we make a draft pick. Will we make a day 3 pick of somebody? Like, to me, I just want to go with best player available. Like, if we can get a really good pass catching running back, Brashard Smith in the 6th round, which he'll probably go before that, but you guys understand like what I'm saying. Or like Bashul Tootin. Maybe we can get him in the 6th round, like a Woody Marks. Some of these guys I think should be competing with Jaleel, but we need to raise the floor, no doubt about it. But again, Audric Estime's 20. He's going into his 21-year-old season right now. Still incredibly young, so much room to grow. And my expectation is that he's going to take a leap forward this year, but by no means should I say we should, not bring any competition in, right? If we bring in 4 guys that are much better, yeah. Do you see the Broncos moving up in the draft this year? For me, it's a no, because the tight end and running backs are deep this draft. Maybe if Genty is in striking range, right? Or Tyler Warren is in striking range from like pick 15 to 20, maybe you would see us do that. But I'd prefer not to. I think in Mel Kiper's latest mock, or on ESPN, I think he had like the Raiders going Genty and then the Cowboys going Omari and Hampton at pick 12 or 13, wherever they're at. So both of those guys might be gone by the time we pick. And if that's the case, maybe a guy like Warren does fall to us at 20. It could be pretty exciting. I would preferably like to trade back because then I think, we could get some more picks and then we could trade our late round picks up to be, higher day 3 picks. But that's always risky. You never want to miss on the guy that you really, really want. But defensive line, running back, tight end, like these are all positions that I would say should be 1st round priorities. And then just come our 3 6th round picks, just take whatever best player you feel like you got. Like if that's Tez Johnson, you take him. Yeah, if it's a defensive lineman, you take him. That's how I feel. Yeah, Rico Dowdle, Brashard Smith could be a lot of fun. I love Brashard Smith. Devin Neal. Oh, yeah, and Devin Neal. That would be a great trio. A lot of fun. And I do think, for what it's worth, Denver Trav, that we'll keep 4 running backs on the active roster. So I would see Estime falling within the active roster still, even with those 3 guys. I think Jaleel, man, bringing in a guy like Brashard Smith, that could be tough. But yeah, Neal's great. And he could fall. A guy that is kind of my muse today that I've been watching a lot of is RJ Harvey. He's another really explosive runner, really quick, has receiving chops as well. He's a guy you could get in the 3rd round, and I think you'd feel really, really good about it. Pookie is not under contract. His contract has expired, so he doesn't have to be cut. He is a free agent. Elijah Arroyo is a guy Denver needs to stay away from. He is injury prone. I didn't realize he was injury prone. Let's see here. Elijah Arroyo. Well, he's got an ACL injury. That's never too great. But that was a while back, I think. Let's see here. Let's see what Fantasy Pros has to say about this. All right, toward his ACL. Back in 2022. I got to be honest, Denver Trav, I love Elijah Arroyo, though. I know he's a late breakout, though. But, man, I love it. And now I feel like our strength and conditioning training program here in Denver, man, it keeps everybody healthy. But where I'm at with you on this is I think, if I had a gun to my head, right, they say, Dave, you got to predict the pick at 20. It's Colston Loveland. I think it's going to be Colston. Look at his numbers in college, very lackluster. I don't know. I kind of take it with a grain of salt. I mean, he was fantastic this year. Let me pull this up. But before that, you didn't have the best quarterback play. Like, let's be honest. Elijah Arroyo, if I can spell his name correctly. Here we go. Let's get his receiving up here. Let's just take a look. Yeah, missed most of 2023. So let me see if I can find out why. Why is this? Why did he miss this? Yeah, and I mean, really, it was just until this year where he broke out. Hold on. All right. So they're saying that the ACL tear in 2022, guess he had trouble recovering from it because he also missed a lot of games in 2023. I don't know. I felt like Greg Dulcich was just such an outlier. That's just like not drafting Omari and Hampton because he's a physical runner. That's kind of how I feel about it. You don't want him to be the next Javonte Williams, but sometimes, man, we got those injuries, you either recover from them or you don't. But it's hard to argue, man. Like, outside of his breakout age, again, his fourth season until he did anything worth a damn, that is a legit concern. And I think it's also why you don't see him mocked in the first round. But I mean, when you look at his athleticism from the Senior Bowl with what he was able to put on tape this year, I thought he was fantastic. But I can understand if there are other tight ends that have stayed healthier and that have also started more games. Again, only 16 targets his first 3 years in college combined. Sorry, I'm not sharing the right screen. So I can understand the hesitation. What I will say is that, yeah, I don't think he's a first round pick. But if we decide to use our second round pick on him, I'm not going to be complaining. If we use our third round pick on him, I definitely won't be complaining. But that's kind of how I feel about the other tight ends once you get to day 2. It's really just kind of pick your flavor. Elijah Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson, Gunnar Helm, Mason Taylor, those types of guys. I'd be cool with any of them. And that's kind of how I feel about the running back position as well. See, where I put these guys, I'd probably rank them Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland. Then I would go Elijah Arroyo, then Terrence Ferguson, then Gunnar Helm. That would probably be my top 5. Or, yeah. Did I have Mason Taylor in there? Man, put him in there. But I just kind of see it as Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland are kind of their own little group. And then everybody else that I just named, they're kind of in their own little group. It ain't rocket science here on David Talks Broncos. Nope. Yeah, Mason Taylor, I'm coming around to it. I'm coming around to Mason Taylor. I think he had a good Senior Bowl as well. I want Malachi Starks. That would be fun. Colston Loveland or Burden in the first. Caleb Johnson or Travion Henderson in the second. Third, tight end. Fourth, best available D-line. Fifth, and 3 6 rounds best available. Free agency, Nick Bolton, Juwan Johnson, Davante Adams, Godwin, or swing for Garrett. Man, Myles Garrett would be pretty fun, man. Man, on the field with the other edge guys that we got, that could be unreal, man. And we'd probably have some packages where we would have both Cooper, Nick Benito, and Myles Garrett on the field, with Zach Allen. I mean, that'd be a lot of fun, man. But yeah, I hope we sign Jawan Johnson. I won't complain though if we go cheap at or kind of bargain basement to an extent at tight end. Because I think some of those signings you can get between the $5 and $10 million range are going to be really, really nice. But yeah, running backs, I mean, again, it's kind of a dime a dozen in a sense of guys that I'd be really happy with. Again, they just kind of all have their different styles, but Quinshon Judkins, be thrilled with him. Be thrilled with Travion Henderson. I don't think he's going to last to our second round pick, but guys like Devin Neal, Caleb Johnson could. Uh, and yeah, RJ Harvey, some of those guys, Brashard Smith. I'm an easy to please guy. That's really it. I can see the vision of how a lot of those players could work. Yeah, and RJ Harvey is just a lot of fun, man. Imagine him and Marvin Mims motioning in the backfield a ton. I think it could be great. But guys, I got to get out of here. Got to get some dinner before my stand-up comedy class tonight. Starting a 2-month stand-up comedy class. Hopefully, I can learn to tell a joke for you guys, and we'll see how it goes. So y'all wish me luck. But T Fishes, Denver, Trav, David, everybody that was in here, thanks so much for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Be sure to like and subscribe on the way out. I'll be back tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow I'll do my video on Tez Johnson. Okay. I'll see you guys then. Go Broncos.